Welcome to the GCC Podcast presented by GatewAI. Today, we are excited to feature Divesh Singla, a global delivery and transformation leader whose 2-decade journey spans the intersection of life sciences, digital innovation, and enterprise operations. As SVP Global Operations and Managing Director for India and Philippines at Signant Health, a global leader in technology enabled clinical trial solutions committed to accelerating research outcomes and improving patient experiences. Divesh is driving the future of life sciences delivery through scalable GCCs, intelligent platforms, and high performance teams. Divesh is known as a salaried entrepreneur, someone who balances visionary thinking with grounded execution. From managing 100 million plus P&Ls to launching AI enabled governance models and setting up high impact capability centers, he has consistently turned complexity into measurable impact. A life sciences value creator and a GCC expert, a passionate advocate for analytics and responsible AI, he's also recognized thought leader and a mentor. I've heard him speak at several events, so I can endorse that for sure. And let's explore his playbook for operational excellence, digital reinvention, and purpose-led leadership in a rapidly evolving global ecosystem. Thank you so much, Divesh, for making it to the podcast today. How does it feel to be here?
Absolutely a pleasure, Suchita, for having me here. It's a mix of nervousness because you sort of raised the bar of expectations very high with that generous introduction of yours. But thank you so much for doing that. I'm hopeful that I would be able to do justice to the topic that we are discussing today.
So, thanks, Divesh, for being on the podcast. I'll get started with the questions I have lined up for you. I want to ask you more on the industry trends, right? So, GCCs from life sciences and clinical research are going through accelerated digital transformation, especially post pandemic. What shifts are you seeing on how global capability centers contribute to faster, more intelligent clinical development?
So let me answer that question in two parts, Suchita. Firstly, I'll give you a perspective in terms of the digital transformation in trends and landscape from an industry perspective, and then I can shed some light from a GCC standpoint. So from a life sciences standpoint, I mean, digital transformation has moved from nice to have to a business critical function. And the pandemic was actually our industry's, forcing. What we are seeing is three major shifts. The first one is the cloud first infrastructure. Companies that were traditionally risk averse are now embracing cloud platforms for clinical data management and clinical operations per se. But this isn't just about cost, it's also about speed and global collaboration. And just to give you an example, many companies out there, they can now spin up clinical trials across continents in months of years. So that has been one fact. The other one is the real world evidence integration. So in our industry, we are moving on traditional clinical trials to incorporate real world data like electronic health records, wearables, patient reported outcomes. This gives us like a 360 to the patient view of the patient outcomes, and it accelerates the regulatory approvals. Last but not the least, from an industry standpoint, we've moved and embraced the decentralized trial models quite significantly. Remote patient monitoring, virtual consultations, home-based data collection are now becoming a standard practice. This has actually opened access to diverse patient populations and reduced trial times by almost 30 to 40%. So the bottom line is, companies that have embraced, I mean, I'm talking about the life sciences and the clinical research organizations that have embraced the digital first approaches are able to get medicines and drugs faster to the market while maintaining the regulatory compliance. So it's not just transformation, it's basically also about competitive advantage. Now, very quickly touching on global capability center landscape, I think global capability centers are helping enterprises accelerate the adoption of the digital transformation because of the benefits that we typically speak about, the talent that we have, the ecosystem of the talent that we have, the general startup ecosystem that we have around us. In the GCC environment, there is relatively more openness to be able to exchange best practices between the organizations, obviously not sharing anything which is IP or confidential. And that kind of also helps, provide that tailwind to this entire value that the GCCs are adding to the enterprise. And lastly, not to forget about that culture of innovation that driven by the global capability centers, and which I'm very sure is true for not just life sciences but also for other industries that we see around us.
Absolutely. I think innovation is based every CC leader I speak touches upon. And what you spoke of, particularly from your industry, has impacted patient experience drastically post pandemic. So thank you for sharing that. I'll move to my next, which is like you have led operations on a global scale across multiple geographies. How are you embedding analytics, automation, and operational rigor in daily delivery, especially to build smarter, more agile teams in regulated industries?
Keyword in your question per se, Suchita. I'll pick up the first one, which is the regulated industry, right? So, being a heavily regulated industry, operational excellence is not an option for us. It is basically a license to operate that we have to sort of adhere to. Managing global operations in life sciences, it requires a different playbook altogether. And here's how I have built or am in the process of building smarter and agile teams, or smarter and agile operations. Firstly, I'll on the data-driven decision making at every level. So whether it's at Signant Health, the company that I'm currently associated with, or my previous organizations, or what we see across the industry, we've embedded real-time dashboards across all the delivery functions. Our teams at Signant Health can see project health, resource utilization, quality metrics instantly. We do have reviews, but our monthly reviews are not necessarily retrospective only in nature. So we course correct in a real time. The second aspect that you also alluded to was related to automation. Now the principle for us is automation with human oversight. In the regulatory environment, you can't just automate and walk away. We have implemented intelligent automation for routine tasks, for example, data validation, report generation, compliance checks, but we have built it with an inbuilt human checkpoint. This gives us speed without necessarily compromising on quality. Lastly, on the same topic is around we've implemented a sort of cross-functional pod structures, to enhance our operational excellence. What it means is that instead of traditional silos, we have organized ourselves in small cross-functional teams with embedded expertise in operations and data sciences and regulatory affairs. So each pod, in a way, owns end-to-end delivery for their domain. Lastly, continuous learning culture, and I don't want to miss upon that because as part of life sciences, regulations constantly evolve, the clinical trial landscape constantly evolves. We have built a learning culture directly into our delivery cycles. Every project includes capture and team upskilling companies. And as a result of all this, we have reduced our timelines by a significant percentage points while we are still maintaining regulatory compliances. Agility and rigor aren't opposites, they're basically complementary for us.
This is great sharing. I love the thought of the real-time data being shared, across your locations on dashboards, and the fact that you spoke about pods and how innovation is stirred up by pods which have cross-functional and tech capabilities, which is a great sharing. Thank you so much for that. Just moving on to something more future forward with the AI adoption rising, how do you envision the next wave of leadership in global delivery? Like, what are the skills or mindsets or any frameworks that you'd like to share that will define the most future ready teams that GCCs in the coming decade should kind of harness?
See, I think my key message out here would be that the next decade belongs to leaders who can blend up AI capability with human judgment. Now, I would say, we are at an inflection point. The leaders and the teams that will thrive in the coming times will, in my opinion, would need to have three characteristics. Number one, they will need to imbibe and adopt a AI augmented decision making process. So So the leaders in future are not going to use just the AI tools. They will think about AI first frameworks. This means that the understanding what AI can and cannot do and building workflows that leverage machine learning while preserving human creativity and judgment is going to be the key. The second characteristic for me, again, this is very particularly oriented towards life sciences, clinical research industry, is regulatory innovation. So in life sciences, innovation without compliance is worthless. You know, future ready teams understand how to move fast within regulatory boundaries. They are building AI solutions that are auditable, explainable, and compliant by design. Lastly, the third characteristic is related to global to local expertise. Now, India's global capability centers are uniquely positioned here. We combine technical talent with understanding of global markets and local execution capabilities. This is a winning formula. I mean, global standards, local innovation, and cross-cultural leadership. So I believe the skills for leadership for future are the technical skills include AI literacy, cloud architecture, data governance. Soft skills would be more around cross-cultural communication, regulatory thinking, change management would be key, and mindset would be more around that mindset of continuous learning, ethical AI practices, and patient-first thinking. So that I believe is going to be the core that would lie from a future readiness perspective, especially in the context of AI and emerging technologies.
Thank you, and so well articulated. Thank you for sharing that. I'll move now to the exciting side of our podcast, which is the rapid fire. We are going to ask you three questions, and these are outside of your work scope, more to know you as a person. I'll get started. Are you ready?
Yep, go for it.
If you had a superpower for one day, what would you choose that superpower to be?
If I had a superpower, I would want something which would help me bring harmony around us. I think we are living in a very sort of a disharmony sort of a society. So yeah, that would be my first thing that I would do if I can get a superpower.
Thank you. What's the weirdest or the most unexpected item on your desk right now? Why I'm asking you because I can see a lot of stuff in the backdrop, but I don't know what's in front of you. I love your backdrop though, but what's the most weirdest or unexpected item on your
I think I have right now I have 4 pair of glasses on my desk. I'm wearing one and I have 3 more. So I don't know why those 3 are there. I mean, although the power of these glasses is the same.
Okay, that's nice. Thank you for sharing that. My last one on this. What's your guilty pleasure binge like? Anything after a long work week? What is it that you'd like to do over a weekend?
Sleeping. If you would have asked this question in a different way, sleep is my hobby. I can sleep anywhere. That's my guilty pleasure.
So, do you spend a lot of time sleeping over the weekend, like catching up?
I try and do that, yes.
I'm assuming your work days would be long because you have a lot of calls in the evening as well.
Yeah, I think it's more of a function of managing work and across multiple geographies. So time zone becomes a challenge here, and that kind of brings that that bit of fatigue that we can say. I think the work itself is great. It's more about the time zone thing. So yes.
Thank you so much, lovely talking to you. I think this was important, the amount of sharing you've done, and I love talking to you on this. Anything, the final words before we
No, I think it has always been a pleasure. Every time we've interacted, there's a different perspective that we get to know about each other, industry, things around us. So I mean, it's always a pleasure. So I'm looking forward to a next opportunity. But thank you so much for having me here. Thank you so much.
Free audio post production by alphonic.com.